We will continue the day with introducing our next session, which is the CEO series. I would like to introduce the founder and CEO of ArabNet, who will be interviewing the CEO of Jamjoom Group on the business transformation of their organization. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Omar Christidis.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We're thrilled to have with us Mr. Mark Pilkington, the CEO of the Jamjoom Group. Jamjoom Group is a very large retail group today operating across the Middle East region with multiple brands that they own and other brands that they represent, especially in fashion. And some of their biggest well-known or most well-known brands include Naomi, the lingerie brand, and Makiaji, the cosmetics brand. And we're excited to be speaking with Mark as well because his background was in digital before he got into retail in a full-blown fashion. Mark started Splendor.com and one of the first kind of luxury bra retailers, online luxury bra retailers, and sold that business very successfully. And so he comes with both the brick-and-mortar experience and the online experience. So Mark, pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Give us a little bit, if you would, a little bit more information about Jamjoom Group, the scale of the operation, number of stores, volume of transactions, just to get a sense of how big the business is.
Sure. Well, the group was founded in 1987 in Jeddah, and its first brand was The Body Shop, the famous British cosmetics beauty brand. And it's grown from there now to have 9 brands and 802 stores as of yesterday. So it's grown very strongly. The headquarters was moved to Dubai in 2002, so we're now headquartered here. We have 4,000 employees. And I think the thing that's possibly unusual about us is that although we have some strong franchise brands like The Body Shop and like Early Learning Centre, we also have some of our own grown brands like Naomi and Makiaji and Mehia, which are brands that we started from scratch, and we control them end to end, everything from design through to branding, marketing, store design, and of course the retail side, which is somewhat unusual in the region. It's an interesting business model. Our strategy is to essentially to customize our products for the people of the region, because many of the franchise brands are not designed for people in this region, and also to undercut them on price, because when you have a franchisor and a franchisee, you have what we call the double margin problem, and it probably comes as no surprise to you that products are very expensive in this region because of that. I guess you're familiar with that, right? The fact that things are like 30% more expensive here than... Well, there's no reason for that. It doesn't have to be that way, and we aim to change that model. We're very proud of what we've achieved. We find that people are proud of us too, because we're homegrown. It's people from the market, from Saudi and from here, who've been developing all these fantastic brands. And these brands compete very well with the big international brands. So I think there's a certain amount of pride in our business. And so that's a bit of background.
Great. And tell us a little bit about your journey personally, and especially with Splendor.com. How did that happen, and kind of the journey that you went through to build that company?
Well, I wasn't involved in retailing. I was involved I was a manufacturer on the branded side. So I worked with a big company in the UK that had brands, and we used to sell to the retailers. And in the late 1990s, I was getting increasingly frustrated with the power balance between our companies in our group and our customers, and the stores retailers were taking more and more and more of the margin out of the business, and it was becoming more and more challenging. So when e-commerce came along, coming into Europe in the late 90s and early 2000s, I saw the opportunity to bypass stores retailing completely and run an end-to-end operation whereby I did all the design, controlled the brand, controlled the factories, and sold directly to the consumer online. So there'd be no value leakage out of the system whatsoever. no margin leakage. So I put together a brand called Splendor.com, which was a luxury online fashion and lingerie business. We got investment from Marks & Spencer's Ventures in 2000, and we launched in the year 2000 in the UK initially. We then grew the brand, and actually, in that time, the e-commerce market wasn't very well developed, and a lot of the e-commerce companies went bankrupt. So we were faced with a bit of a stark dilemma because Europe wasn't really ready for e-commerce in the year 2000. Not that many people transacted online. So in order to save the business, we were forced to become basically omnichannel, almost before that word was invented. Because I knew the stores business, I actually started selling through stores as well. And I used the cash flow from the stores business to actually fund the development of the internet business. I sold the business to a public company in 2006, and then I was looking around for something to do, and I came across the Jamjoom, Mr. Jamjoom, and Kamal Jamjoom, and he said, you know, I've got this business out in the Middle East, and it's a high-growth business, and you should come out and have a look. So I came out and started working with them. And for me, although I'd sold to stores, working in stores was a completely new experience. So I had to learn that business. At that stage, we had e-commerce. We were actually one of the early people. We had an e-commerce site from 2006, but it wasn't doing any business. And you know, I looked at the circumstances with my experience of the market, and I looked at it. I thought the market's not ready for e-commerce. There's low use of credit cards. The delivery problem, there's no addresses, and the delivery problem is a substantial problem. People enjoy shopping. Most of our customers are women, and the women in the region enjoyed shopping. It was an entertainment activity. They enjoyed the malls. They were in the malls all the time. They weren't sort of time poor like people in the States. So all the circumstances that had made e-commerce great in Europe and the States didn't exist at that time here. And therefore, it was not surprising that we were doing low numbers. So for the first 4 or 5 years, I focused very much on the stores business, developing the stores business, and learning the stores business, and turning it around, which is what we've done. So we've built up our profitability, our cash flow, and our balance sheet, and we're in a very strong position. And now, obviously, the circumstances, as you know, are changing in the region, and I think the time is right now for e-commerce.
But you still don't have, as a group, an e-commerce presence today. You have plans to roll out e-commerce, and what do those plans look like for you today?
Well, the first thing we decided, we made a couple of decisions. Number one, we're going to do everything in-house. I mean, we do have a few agencies, but basically all the IP is going to be with us, because the thing I learned having my own business is that the first thing you do when you launch your website is you want to change it. And if you have to keep going to agencies to change it, it gets very expensive. Secondly, we decided that we are not going to launch a separate internet division. A lot of retailers have launched separate internet divisions that have their own P&L and they're run separately. And I think that was valid for a time, but now, with the development of social media and marketing and just omni-channel retail in the way that customers expect to be able to buy every which way and to be rewarded and to have customer relationship management across all the platforms, we don't want to separate it out. We have created a separate startup team within the company to get the basic platform up and running, which is happening at the moment. So we've given them their own office. You've got technology people, you've got marketing people, you've got logistics people and finance people, all working together in a little sort of startup team. They've got a pinball machine, and they don't have to wear suits, and they can kind of be different from the rest of us. So it's like a startup mentality, and they have a very tight timetable for developing the first omnichannel platform by the third quarter of this year, which will initially be tested on Naomi, which is our biggest brand. But the aim is basically we're going to have one platform that, once we've established it, we're going to roll it out across all of our brands as rapidly as possible, with an aim within 12 months is we'll have it running all across all of our 9 brands. So that's kind of where we are.
Excellent. And so you're keeping it at an arm's length to keep that culture separate. But are you integrating it somehow into the existing in-store experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that...
Or with the other channels that you have in terms of the retail channels?
Yes, I mean, I think these days, basically you just want to be able to give the customer what they want anytime they want it. So they might be on their phone, they might be on their computer, they might be in a store. You don't really know where they are, but you never know when they're going to want to buy, and you don't want to miss any opportunities to give them that service. So our system is going to be any which way. So you can order at home, get delivered to the home. You can order at home and get delivered to a store. You can order in the store and get delivered to the same store or to another store. And you can order in the store and get delivered to your home. So every which way. So people call it e-commerce, click and collect. There's different words for it. But it's basically just being able to access the stock of the company at any time. And we actually think that the stores element is going to be as important as the online element, because we lose a lot of sales all the time in the fashion business. Towards the end of each season, we start to run out of stock, because you basically have to run out of stock by the end of the season, otherwise you go bankrupt on fashion. You've got to be able to sell the stock. So you basically start to run out, and we lose a lot of sales. Plus we have stores that are like 50-metre stores, and we have stores that are 500-metre stores. And we want to be able to offer the 500-metre store range in the 50-metre store. So those things we think will add a lot to the business. And the idea is you can buy any which way and get delivered any which way.
Excellent. How do you feel that the retail purchase process has changed? Technology has affected the way that we consume. I remember a study that we saw by on-device research that said 90% of consumers in Saudi Arabia had stopped a purchase as a result of a mobile search in the store, right? And that could be a search for a price, a search for a review that made them stop their purchase. How do you see the internet has changed the consumer purchase process?
Well, I think
Go.
I think the fundamental thing is that it's not just e-commerce. It's the way it's the whole data capture that e-commerce makes possible. And I think historically you had two types of retail businesses. You had direct marketing businesses like Reader's Digest or catalogue businesses, and you had stores retailing. And the direct businesses like the catalogues had a different purchasing process from the stores business. The stores business, you pay a lot of money to open a store in a busy mall, and your customer walks in, and you service them, and then they walk out the door, and you don't know whether you're ever going to see them again. And the only way you can sell more is by blasting out national advertising or national PR and just hoping to hit some of those people. But it was very cheap to acquire customers, but very hard to keep them, very hard to remarket to them, very expensive to remarket to them. In the direct businesses, they had a completely different business model. There, they had to work people gradually up to sort of bounce back offers, trying to get their data, trying to get them to do a trial, and then eventually getting them to be loyal. And it was extremely expensive to acquire customers. But once you'd acquired them, you could remarket to them extremely cheaply and very easily. And so it's a completely different financial model. One was very cash flow negative. The first one was very cash flow positive because you started trading and you got the cash immediately. The other, you had to keep investing. I mean, look at Amazon direct model. Look at the investment that's been put into Amazon for the years and years and years before they got any profit out of it, because they kept acquiring customers and they kept acquiring customers and they kept spending money to acquire customers. So the direct model, you actually make money when you stop acquiring customers and take a break and then harvest the customers you already have. Now, I think what's happening now with omnichannel retailing is that these two business models are getting blurred, because the opportunities for capturing customer data, which always existed in store but weren't really used that much in store, at least not in this region, and the opportunities for capturing data online, it started to coalesce. So now you can really learn everything about your customers, whether you capture the data in store, whether you capture the data online. You can remarket to them really easily. And you can also, but they also have very high expectations. So they want to be able to buy any which way and have efficient delivery. And they also want to be rewarded for their loyalty, for their purchasing. Their expectations are much higher. So you've got to have a good, strong, integrated CRM system. So people can basically access you anyway, see you on Facebook or whatever, go to your app, buy on the app, deliver it. If they don't like it, they may want to take it back to a store and return it to a store and buy something else in the store, and so on and so forth. So basically, you've just got to be very flexible.
Interesting. So this is how you feel that all of this is shifting the way the retail is being done across the board, because all of these models are now moving towards a kind of a direct marketing model.
Absolutely.
So how about the in-store experience itself? We hear a lot about different technologies that are going to revolutionize the in-store experience or the in-mall experience. What are you guys doing in terms of your in-store experience?
Well, we are installing, as part of the click and collect, we're going to install stations in our stores with iPads where you'll be able to browse the range and buy. We're also introduced an interesting technology, because one of the problems we have, particularly with things like lingerie, is that we can't really market it in the region, particularly in certain areas of the region. We're just really not allowed to show the things that we would like to be able to show. So we now are putting not barcodes, the little reader things, QR codes on our products. And if you use your QR reader and you click on the product, you will see a fashion show with that product in on your phone. So, that brings the whole thing alive to consumers.
You'll see that on a person.
You'll see a fashion
Which
show.
you're not supposed to be able to see in some of these markets.
It's fine if it's in private. It's okay.
Okay.
Everything is permitted in private, but you can't have it in public. So you can't have it in your shop windows. You can't have it on billboards, but on your phone is fine. So it's an interesting, it changes the dynamic.
And a cultural specific way of handling
Exactly.
a culturally specific challenge.
Exactly, yeah.
Interesting. What about other in-store technologies or in-mall technologies? I mean, people talk about beacons. People are talking about kind of localized mobile ads that are being served, targeting you, all the data collection that's happening. Are you guys planning on implementing some of these technologies?
Well, I think for us that's stage 2. I'm sure that it will come in and it will change people's shopping habits. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where people will start to resent the amount that we know about them and that we know exactly where they are and we may get a backlash against it, I don't know, but probably not. So I think these things will come in, but one of the things that I'm constantly reminded of, particularly here, is that one has to be very practical about one's plans and make sure that we can actually implement. For me, rather than thinking about that, I much rather think about what's going to happen when someone wants to click and collect and the person in the store doesn't know how to use the technology. For me, that's a much more real and pressing issue because, for example, in Saudi Arabia, we have 70% labour turnover per year in our stores. So, we're going to have to train all the people in the stores in all these technologies and have them implement them efficiently. So I'm rather more focused on the practical details at the moment.
Okay. Let's ask our audience here a quick question then. How many of you, if you liked a brand, whether it's on Facebook or something, you have a brand affinity with a brand, and you were in a mall, would be upset if that brand sent you a promotional SMS? Raise your hand if you would feel upset if that brand sent you a promotional SMS. Okay. Interesting. So, but that's a pretty small portion of our audience. Granted, our audience is a techie audience, and so from that perspective, you're probably less likely than your average consumer to feel upset by that. Another question: what are some of the key challenges that you feel you're going to face as you are implementing some of your e-commerce initiatives? You talked a little bit about training the workforce. Other challenges that you see and other plans that you have to mitigate those challenges?
Well, I mean, my experience with Splendor back in the 2000s was that the devil is always in the detail with these direct businesses. It comes down to details and basic things like, for example, to what extent are you going to protect the stock for your internet business? Because if you're running a stores business, the stores are going to be demanding the stock. It's a hot seller, we want it, And are you going to keep a reserve for the online business? And for example, if you ran out of stock in the online business, would you go as far as to take a piece of stock back from a store into your home warehouse in order to protect it? That's a very important, significant detail. And my view on that is the answer to that is absolutely. You would do all of that because of the very high cost of customer acquisition with online businesses. You cannot afford to frustrate your customer with an online business. They won't come back. So that's a practical detail. It's something that goes wrong very easily. You're just out of stock. Or it takes a long time to get delivered. And these are things that consumers find unacceptable. And I think the whole store I've talked a bit, I won't repeat the whole...
What about consumer education? Do you believe that the consumer is ready for the e-commerce transaction?
Well, they're not ready for all of it. I mean, we see a huge increase in credit card use now in Saudi Arabia. It's gone up from like 20% of our transactions up to 30% in the last 2 years. So that's a very big increase. But it's still only at 30%. Saudi is still very much a cash economy. The whole issue of use of credit cards or different payment mechanisms is still a challenge. We've chosen to go with credit card because the cash on delivery option is very, very it's very cumbersome and very difficult. It makes it very expensive. So we've heard from people who do it. So we've actually bet on the fact that people will become increasingly comfortable with credit cards or mobile money of one sort or another. So people will start to pay using electronic money.
Okay, excellent. And that leads me to my final question to you, which is, what are some key trends that you think are going to transform the retail space or experience in the next 5 years, maybe? What are some of the channels that are going to change, or the opportunities that are going to change how we transact?
Well, I think that just the whole ability to put over a marketing message is growing exponentially. I mean, for example, in the old days, if we shot a television advert, it would cost like £2 million, and it would take 10 weeks to shoot it, and then you spend all this money blasting it out there. Now we're able to shoot. We've actually set up a studio in our warehouse, and we're constantly shooting videos. We just shoot videos all the time, which is another thing we got from the direct business. That's what they do in direct businesses. Like TV shopping, for example, they just have their own studios and they're just shooting footage all the time. So, the ability, basically with things like Facebook and with YouTube and Instagram, to basically show people moving images. If you're in the image business, which we are, moving images are so much more powerful than static images. And of course, we've talked about the privacy issue as well. So for us, I think, we talk about, Naomi TV or Mickey Adji TV. I think we're going to become much more, almost like a media company, kind of bashing out programming, bashing out images that moving images that entice our customers. But it'll probably include like editorial pieces, people doing like what we're doing, talking about, what are the latest trends in makeup, or what are the latest trends in, like the bloggers are doing. We'll become integrated with the blog sphere, etc. So I think I see it as we become almost like media companies in our own right, and the product becomes almost just the end bit of the process.
Excellent. On that note, amazing. The idea of the closer integration of commerce and content, the idea that products or retailers will have their own media or their own channel to be able to deliver content that drives the sale of products. I think that's an amazing note to end on. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us. Thank you for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.